Hello, hello. Peace, love, and blessings, beautiful, wonderful people. Welcome back to Philosophy with Z. I am Z. I'm so glad you're here with me today as we continue on our journey of what to say when you talk to yourself. And for the first time, I am recording this live on my Facebook page, so that's exciting. So, this is chapter 7 of What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, and it is called Passing It On. So, this chapter is a little bit redundant as compared to the last couple chapters. Chapter 5, especially, we learn to believe. But this one kind of shows me, passing it on, we have kind of received certain self talk from others before us, but I guess the passing it on part is just how we carry it on in our lives and kind of share it with others too. So he says that when we're children and we're collecting like dozens of perspectives and points of view, we hear a lot about all the stuff you cannot do. Don't go up there, don't go under there, don't go over there, all of that stuff. And he even has a whole like paragraph that's an example about all the things that we might hear. You're just no good at that. Your room is always a mess. Can't you do anything right? You're just like your father, which always seem to be said when the child is not acting right. um, why can't you be more like your sister or brother? You'll never be an artist or athlete. Just don't try it. Blah blah blah. I don't really want to say all of them, but he has quite a few of them, and it's I really believe that when people tell us these things, it is because they're telling us from a place of loving and caring. They don't want to see us get hurt. They don't want to see us fail. They don't want to see us be sad or disappointed. So I give love to everyone who ever said anything like this. But what they don't realize is that they were giving the child a self-belief that would create failure instead of happiness and success. That they like truly, I believe that's what they're going for. They're like, oh, I don't want you to get on top of that because you might fall. They want you to be successful and not getting hurt. Or I don't think you should go out for that sport because you're not really that athletic. They don't want to see you be embarrassed. They don't want to see you try something that is very public and see you not succeed at that thing. So I can understand the perspective they're coming from, but the way that he described it in another chapter was that a young man overheard someone say that this young man would be a great artist one day, and so later on he became a great artist. But on the contrary, another student heard a teacher say, you'll never amount to anything, and subsequently that's what happened too. So although everything is about your own personal choice and what you do and like what you decide to make of your own life, it's so interesting that this self-talk is like so subconscious. We don't even realize that this machine is going on in our sleep, in our wake, like when we're doing things, when we're doing nothing, all the time. This machine is going at our subconscious level that is directing us to live our lives. And so this subconscious programming that we grew up with that genuinely wanted to keep us safe and protected from harm created an unconscious baseline and belief system that we didn't necessarily sign up for. Although the people around us believe that to be the best way to live in any circumstance, it could be with food or finances or home life or cars or schools. Basically, we come into this life completely brand new, not knowing how to do anything, not knowing what to think about anything. And so we learn how to live based on those around us. So in a previous chapter, he talked about how we were told no, or you cannot do something thousands of times when we were growing up. And like actually my mentor, Sean Murphy, he said that when his son was growing up, he wouldn't let anyone tell him no. He might say stop, like stop, don't do that, but he didn't want them telling him no because a child is just like learning and exploring. They don't really understand the difference between like, no, it's like, no, don't do that, or like, no, you're wrong, or no, you're bad, it creates some kind of like confusion in their little brains. I don't have any kids, so I'm not really expert at that part, but this is just what he told me. And this is what Shad Helmstetter is talking about in this book too. So I just take it for what it is. So as we grow up, we get programmed with all these cannots, and they become a habit. It becomes a habit that we just think about all the reasons why we cannot do something rather than all the reasons why we can do something. And I know in myself, growing up and being in high school and college and stuff, and even at my job, I'm really an expert at all the reasons why that's not going to work. And at some point in the last couple years, I realized that I don't know unless I try, unless I do it. So there's no there's no basis in me saying all these reasons why something is not going to work. So I've just gotten to the habit as much as I can to just go ahead and try something. Just go ahead and do it. And if it works, then yay, that's great. And if it doesn't work, then yay, that's great. Because I can learn from that experience. And it doesn't have to be a failure if I'm learning from it. Even if it is a failure because it didn't work out, that's still not a big deal. I think that our culture, at least in the United States culture, this idea of trying things and failing and shying away from that experience is just like not great for our personal growth. I don't really know what quite the right words to say for it, but the idea of trying things and being uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone, and doing things when you're scared and having the courage to do things, it just blossoms out into so many areas of our lives that can give us the opportunity to grow and give us the opportunity to achieve things that we never thought possible. But it starts with our self talk. And I want to quote this one part from here. And he says, our daily conversation scripts often sound like they were written by the same editors who designed the front page of the morning paper. We live in our poorly programmed unconscious minds in the disquieting shadow world of uncertainty, believing that we should be achieving but not knowing why, after so much frustration and trying, we are not. And I like that because I remember going through high school and college and having a job and becoming a supervisor and having a boyfriend, an apartment, and a car. I had everything I thought I was supposed to be working up to, but I was miserable. I was just like, is this it? Like, I did everything. I'm 23. I did everything that I was supposed to do. Like, how come I'm not happy yet? How come I feel unfulfilled? I love my relationship. I love my car. But my job was just like not feeding my soul. And so here I am doing stuff like this because this makes me happier. Okay, so I'll continue. By the time most of us reach adulthood, we are so conditioned to think in a certain way that our pattern of self talk becomes habit. It's fixed. And for most, it remains that way. How we look at life, what we believe about ourselves, how we review anything, and what we do about it gets filtered through our preconceptions. And that's like right in alignment with the last chapter that was called The Wall. The wall is like subconscious wall of this subconscious wall of our belief systems. It holds everything that we believe to be true, and it keeps out everything that we don't believe to be true. And so it's like a veil. We see the world through that veil. And so some people are just tend towards more negative expectations, and some towards more positive expectations. And I'm grateful to be the kind of person that generally sees things in a more positive way. And through that practice of doing that for probably the last decade, I am in a pretty good place mentally. I can at least observe my self talk and pay attention to what I'm saying to myself, and especially how it makes me feel after. Because our feelings are feedback. They let us know if what we're thinking is in alignment with the truth that is me. So when I have thoughts that soon after make me feel really bad about myself, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. I am perfectly okay in this present moment in time, but I feel bad. So I recall that what I was thinking about right before the feeling emerged, it was something that wasn't good. So for example, I do a lot of stuff. So when I want to rest, I just want to lay in my bed and play on Instagram. Sometimes I feel bad for that. Like I'm wasting time because like a year ago, I would waste a lot of time on Instagram and stuff like that. Just like hours, just scrolling, just being constantly consuming, but not really doing anything with myself. So, like now, when I repeat that behavior, even if it's in a smaller time frame, when I repeat that behavior, it makes me think about how I used to think back then because that was my old habit. That was my old thinking pattern. And so now I like, no, I'm productive. I'm successful day in and day out. I just want to rest for an hour. And out of the 16 to 18 hours that I'm awake in the day, that 1 hour is not going to make a huge difference. So that's just like an example of the self talk. I'm aware of me saying that, like, I'm wasting time. I shouldn't be doing this. This is no good. Like, all of that doesn't, it's not productive for me. Granted, I'm not going to tell myself that I can just do this for 5 hours straight and it's going to be all good. Like, no, that's going to make me feel even worse. So there's just balances and limitations that we, that I take on a daily basis. And the main thing that I took from this chapter is that he's talking about how we believe that we should be achieving but not knowing why. After so much frustration and trying, we are not. And that's what happened to me with my first job. And that's what happens to me when I'm Instagram scrolling. I feel like I'm doing something, and I am. Like, I'm on Instagram, so I'm like, oh, I'm like collecting. I'm collecting posts that I want to post later or that I want to share later. I'm going to share these posts, things like that. It's like fake productivity. But like going back to my job, I'll be jumping around a little bit. Going back to my job, like I achieved it. I got my degree. I went to this job. I applied and I was hired and I moved up quickly and became a supervisor because I had a degree, and it just was not working for me. Like I tried so hard to achieve and I did. And truly all the outward achievement just like left me so bankrupt within myself. And that's really what got me using drugs so much. I know I haven't mentioned that in this season of my podcast at all, I don't think. But in the first season, when I did the book called The Greatest Secret Ever, I talked about my drug addiction and recovery a lot. But it just kind of hasn't come up right now and until now. So I just remember like being in this place of doing all the right things, but not feeling right and kept thinking that the good feeling would come later. And that's kind of like beside the point right now, but it just came up, so I wanted to mention it. But like I mentioned before, some people tend to think more negative and some tend to think more positive. And he says that a lot of people automatically believe the worst first and the best last. And I've heard so many variations of that. Like people thinking that, oh, I hope for the best, but I expect the worst. Or, oh, it's always going to be the worst outcome. If anything else happens, I'm surprised. And stuff like that. And the funny thing is, you will get exactly what you expect. And I am very apprehensive of people who speak of negative expectations. Like, this job is going to suck. I'm going to be late to work. This food is going to be cold. Like, all kinds of stuff. I'm apprehensive of things like that because I'm like, wow, you're probably a fantastic manifester and you don't even know it because you mad because you're getting exactly what you're saying you're going to get. It's just like a silly little vicious cycle. But there is hope. There is something starting right now that you can do about it. It is the key to how you manage yourself and how you live and manage the rest of your life. And that key is the self-management sequence, which is the next chapter. And this podcast was a little shorter today, probably because I'm nervous because I'm on live. So people have been popping in and out. But like I said, get out of your comfort zone. You got to do things and just push yourself to higher levels. So, and the first one is always hard, but it gets better. So I look forward to it getting better. So, the self management sequence, I'll just give a little preview to the next chapter. The 5 steps that control our success or failure. 1 is behavior, 2 is feelings, 3 is attitudes, 4 is beliefs, and 5 is programming. So, the programming creates beliefs, beliefs create attitudes, attitudes create feelings, feelings determine actions, and actions create results. So that's all 5, all wrapped up in one. I might need to create some kind of visual flow chart or something to go along with this next week because it's a lot of pages. So this will be fun. I'm loving this process and I hope you are too. I hope that you are gaining some self-awareness during this process. I know a lot of it right now is just kind of build up, but a lot of this is kind of just becoming aware of what is, because I didn't really think about this stuff before. I mean, I've been kind of working on this for the last year or so, so I kind of have like some kind of insight into it, but before this stuff, I had no idea that my thoughts had such an impact on my life. And I hear a lot of people say that, a lot of women especially, they wouldn't talk to their best friend the way they talk to themselves. And that's just sad. That's just sad. We should, like, if you follow the Bible or any kind of spiritual teachings, like, you treat yourself a certain way and then you treat everyone else that same certain way. And so it's kind of confusing to me, for one, when girls wouldn't talk to about their best friends the way they talk about themselves. But I'm like, you probably secretly are, and you might not be voicing it. Or maybe not, let me not take anybody else's inventory. I don't know what they got going on. But I truly believe that your inner world is reflected in your outer world, and your relationship with yourself and your higher power are the most important. And your higher power is kind of like your higher self. That person within you that you hear talking to you, that's your higher power. That's kind of yourself. It's kind of all like one and the same. So, whatever the case may be, strengthening that relationship with self, higher power, all that good stuff, strengthening that relationship is so paramount to every other relationship in our lives. And I know that we can't control what kind of blessings we're receiving, but we can control how we feel and how we act. And all of that stems from how we talk to ourselves. So that's what I'm here for. And I feel like I've been kind of rambling for a while, so I'm just going to close it up. So I look forward to being with you next week as I talk about Chapter 8, the self-management sequence. This is a great chapter. So thank you for being here. If you want to reach out to me about anything, if you have questions, comments, criticisms, feedback, whatever on my podcast, I would love to hear it. So you can contact me at abstractlogic.me, and that website will be in the description. And I'll talk to you soon. All right, peace, love, and blessings.